Now we'll look at retrieving water-damaged photographs, both in albums, and we've got some typical family photograph albums here of different ages, and we'll also look at single photographs and briefly talk about negatives. So once again, the retrieval process is much the same. Have your support container, the tub, the box, whatever it is you want to use, lined with an absorbent material. Have that right next to where your water-damaged albums are. And we're going to rinse these as well. Same process as the book, keep it closed if it was already closed. So you're rinsing off the outside of the mud, because really you want to get to those photographs as soon as possible. And then on to the absorbent material. Our nappy again, which is getting quite damp and dirty at this stage. So now, what have we got?
Then we would be carefully opening the album and having a look inside the album to see the state of the photographs. If you've got large pieces of debris, you can remove them gently with your hands. Then the technique is to carefully use a pair of scissors and to remove the photograph from the album.
Is that a plastic sleeve there, Tegan?
That's a plastic sleeve with paper backing. So select one page at a time, and each album is constructed differently. This one is joined along the edges, and the photograph is inserted from the spine edge. So it would be best to actually cut from that open end. So grabbing a pair of scissors and avoiding the photograph itself, cutting along this edge here. Okay, and then you should be able to peel back the plastic and access the photograph. Depending on how wet it is will depend on what technique you may have to use. If it's very wet, you may need to use a spatula to lift it from the backing page. And sliding it gently out. This photograph, once it is out, is quite clean. There is no more debris on this photograph. So then for it to dry, we could either simply air dry it flat, like so, or alternatively, if you are short on space, we can hang it. So we have a line over here, and you can simply hang the photograph from the line. You will end up getting a small kink on the corner of the photograph, but that is considered acceptable in a disaster recovery situation. So we have another album of similar
photography.
We will wash it gently to remove the excess debris, letting as much drain as possible. And then once again, we will open up. And this is a slightly different style of album. And once again, we were wanting to cut the photograph from its sleeve. Now these are individual sleeves with photographs on both sides. If the photograph was to remain in the sleeve, the photograph would stick to the plastic. It would take a long time for the photograph to dry, and you would possibly end up with mould growth. So
that would be very difficult to remove, I would imagine.
Yes,
the mould growth.
Mould on photographs is very difficult to remove, and generally it is considered that the photograph is irretrievable once mould damage has occurred.
Right.
So using the spatula, I just found the edge of the sleeve, and using the scissors, I am just cutting it away from the photograph, and you can see it lifting up from the photograph itself. If the photograph has begun to stick, you will see that the damage will occur by the photograph tearing.
And is there something that we could do? Or if it was sticking, what would we do? Would we...
If it was
sticking to the plastic
sticking
sleeve?
to the plastic sleeve, I would call a conservator.
Right, so, okay, so that's...
This one is quite interesting in that the person has saved on space and has put several photographs into the one sleeve. If I just gently turn it over on the back here, this is just the backing paper. And then here we actually have 2 photographs. So I will just...
That's a strange thing for someone to do, isn't it?
Gently see if I can allow the 2 photographs to be separated. And I can see down here at this level that the photographs are coming apart quite nicely. You will feel if they're stuck, it will feel like sticky, you know, it would feel that they're quite stuck together.
And if they were stuck like that, you'd leave them for a conservator, would you freeze?
You could freeze, yes. If they're still wet but stuck, you could look at freezing them, yes.
Because that would just buy us some time. Yeah.
So that's how to get the photographs out of a plastic album. I will then show you how to get a photograph, or what we would do with a paper-based album. So here we have a paper-based album. Once again, removing from the water and blotting, and then we could look at rinsing.
So this is the more traditional type of album?
This is, yes, it's certainly a more traditional sort of album. It could be sort of like a wedding album or a baby photo album, where the pages are paper-based. Okay, when faced with a paper-based album, there are several options available. Gently open the album and look at each page carefully. Some albums have this interleaving paper present. Some albums don't. If they do have this interleaving paper present, I would recommend removing this paper. By simply, it's normally quite a thin paper, by simply grabbing it and tearing it so that you can access the photographs easily. If you have time and you are not concerned with the album staying as an album, you could look at removing the photographs. This would be simply, if it's attached with photo corners, this would be simply sliding a spatula underneath the photograph and gently removing from the corners and air drying as discussed before.
Why would you need to remove the interleaving tissue?
The interleaving tissue will become stuck to the photographs.
Right, when it dries.
And here we have a photograph that was starting to stick to its adjacent photograph. So once again, we'd like to remove the tissue. And in this case, this album could potentially be dried in a fanned out method. So we could stand it up and fan out the pages. This will dry a lot of pages in one go. By removing the tissue means that you will not have anything dried stuck to the photograph surface. Alternatively, if the album is very wet and you do not feel like you can tackle it all in one go, then you could look at freezing the album. What I mean about when tissue is perhaps stuck to the surface of the photograph is a method called, or
a result
called blocking. This is an example of some photographs that were wet and they remained in their stack while they dried. And what has resulted is blocking, where the photographs are completely stuck to each other. Now this may be irretrievable, but it's best to talk to a conservator about such a situation. So while the photographs are wet, you should be able to slide your spatula in and remove them from a stack and hang them on the line as discussed previously, or air drying them individually on some paper.
So shouldn't throw anything out just in case.
No, don't throw anything out. Everything can be salvaged, and it can always be dried flat and perfect later by a conservator.
Excellent. Thank you, Tegan.